Eagles. Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. Got a full show here for you planned. J-Mac, how you doing on this Tuesday morning, my friend?
Oh, still recovering from that Sixers. I don't know what you want to call it, but it wasn't.
That was an ass beating, John.
Woo! Talk about an ass beating, boy. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I'll tell you what. I don't like this deferring Tyrese Maxey early in the game. I mean,
this is my biggest problem with Joel Embiid coming into these games and getting the ball more. Tyrese can't play the same, John, when Joel's standing at the top of the key like that.
That's like look at what Jalen Brunson did to that team in the first 8 minutes while Tyrese Maxey isn't shooting the basketball. Now, You're probably not going to win the game anyway because he was just insanely good. That is a great player, Jalen Brunson, but you got no shot if your best scorer is basically handcuffed. And I wish I covered the Sixers like I used to, because I would love to ask that question of Nick Nurse. I'm like, you can't operate like this. That's why you have these 40-point losses when they lose games. Look, if he gets people involved early, and if Joel's got it, if Paul George, somebody, Kelly Oubre, somebody else has it, VJ. They didn't have it yesterday. And then the game's over by the time he's trying to shoot the ball in the second quarter. Insanity to be to play that way.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. That was an ugly game, Johnny Mac. It almost looked like they gave up in the third quarter because they were just getting their ass beat. So
they did. Well, They never play bench players, and they just load. They gave. But hey, one loss is one loss, whether you lose by 1 or 40. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. But that's the type of loss that's a little bit demoralizing, in a way. And I'm with you 100% on Tyrese Maxey. Flyers also lost in overtime last night. Did the Phillies also lose last night? I'd have to go.
The Phillies won.
Phillies won. All right. So it wasn't a clean sweep.
It
wasn't a clean sweep for Philly last night.
They won 1-0, I believe.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
So. But regular season baseball doesn't have the same kick as postseason basketball or postseason hockey. So disappointing. Flyers disappointing because they had a 2-0 lead.
Yeah,
couldn't put it away. Sixers just got boat raced. They got boat raced.
Yeah, it was horrible. They lost by I think almost 40. I was watching it all the way to the end, and I stopped paying such close attention to the television after halfway through the third quarter. But all right, Johnny Mac, good stuff today, man. I want to thank everybody for being here today. We'll start it off with a nice super chat. Purpose isn't passing. That's one of my favorite names in the chat, John. Purpose isn't passing. Obviously, a nod to quarterback 1, Jalen Hurts. He says this: Big Z, a.k.a. Kango Krause, welcome back. Thank you, brother. Johnny Mac, a.k.a. Johnny Logic. Good morning, fellas. Good morning, my man. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the super chat. Hope you are doing well today. Johnny Mac, we got to start it up with Big Dom gets a contract extension.
Yeah.
Philadelphia Eagles, and also John Ferrari. Tell us the latest in the front office, John. They've lost a couple of guys here, and they lock a couple more down that they've had in the building. Obviously, two meaningful names, two valuable names to this organization. What do you make of it, John? What do you know about it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Big Dom wasn't going anywhere. He's become sort of his own brand, such an interesting story of just, what he does and what he means to the organization. And he's sort of a jack of all trades. Yeah, he does security, but he also does logistical things. He's game day coaching operations, keeping everything copacetic on the sidelines, or at least trying to, after the one incident. Those are his literal job, including, assistant to the GM. So, he's got so much in his job title. He's got the longest job title in the history of the world. John Ferrari is the lesser known of the two assistant GMs, I would say, with Alec Hallaby. Alec just left. So you get one of them back, and we'll see if they promote somebody to Alec Hallaby's job. So they lost Alec. They lost Brandon Johnson, who's their cap guy, their contract negotiator, and they Bryce Johnson, and they lost Jeff Scott, who's a pro personnel guy. Both of them to Atlanta. But over the years, I mean, the guy who hired him, Ian Cunningham, that's when they made the move. When they lost that cluster of people, Ian Cunningham, Brandon Brown, Catherine Raish, at the time, they for the first time, Howie gave out that assistant GM title to two people, Alec Hallaby and John Ferrari. So, if you look at the past few years, Alec was the one getting interviews around the league. John's mainly, the football compliance expert is what you would say, the rules expert. But he does a lot of other stuff as well. It's a wider encompassing job, but that's his sort of background. So it's good. I mean, anytime you lose so many executives as the Eagles have had over the past half decade or so, you get two guys who've been here for a long time and get them locked into contract extensions.
Good stuff there. Happy to have Big Dom here for the stat. And like you mentioned, I don't think anybody thought he was going. John, what exactly does it mean when he is the senior advisor to the general manager? I know that they had to make a coaching title for him when the incident happened on the sideline so that he could stay on the sideline. But what exactly does it mean to be the senior advisor to the general manager when you have assistant general managers and all these different things? Is that just kind of a
cheers title,
big Domism or what here?
I always tell the Cheers story, the great Cheers episode. These titles are what they are. Now in coaching, you see passing game coordinator, senior offensive assistant, blah, blah, blah. It's really, I always joke, when Kevin Patullo was associate head coach, or Jamal Singleton is still assistant head coach, Sean Mannion's still ahead of them on the totem pole of the coaching staff. So that's what I would say to that. But I wouldn't get too locked up into the titles other than, from Howie's standpoint, Dom is the guy who spearheads the backgrounds on everybody. Which is a very important part of the process when it involves people you're going to invest millions and millions of dollars on. So that would be his main role. It's not like he's doing personnel but he's in charge of the background and things of that nature, keeping everything. He's not the only one, but he's the guy who sort of leads it.
Right. There you go. Good stuff from Big Dom. I think everybody in Philly loves Big Dom. And then John obviously talked about John Ferrari as well. I think John Ferrari joined the Eagles in 2016. Dom DeSandro joined the Eagles in 1999. How about that, everybody? Almost 27 years now for Big Dom to be with the Philadelphia Eagles. He joined as assistant chief security officer under Butch Bucinico.
The legend. I was not here when Butch was here, but
he left in 2011. Yep.
Yeah, he's a legend. Around the organization, but and Dom took over for him. His role has since expanded greatly. Very loyal to Jeffrey Lurie. Obviously, that's when I said there's no way he's leaving. Anytime you see there's someone he's somebody explained it to me like this, because everybody makes the mob connection because he's Italian and how he dressed, everybody's got a guy. He's the guy for everything. Like, you want to go to the Sixers game, you see everybody ringing the bell, he's right there. He's the guy setting that up, Flyers game, Flyers, whatever, he's the guy. So everybody's got a guy. If you want something and you're a player, you go to Dom.
Yeah, there you go. Big Dom. Shout out Big Dom. I happen to be a big fan of Big Dom. I freaking like Big Dom. John, how much does he mean to the organization? While we talk about him today, we're in the middle of the offseason here. We got a contract extension for Big Dom. I don't think he was going anywhere anyway. But let's just talk about him for a little bit. How much does he mean to this team? You know, it feels like his role has increased in the last couple of years. You see him everywhere. Obviously, his legend grew because of some of the public facing things that occurred, you know, with the sideline stuff. And, you know, now almost everybody in the NFL world knows of Big Dom. It doesn't feel like that was the case, you know, more a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But it is the case now. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like he's a big part of the Eagles organization, J-Mac.
No, he definitely is. You know, I when he did get suspended for the sort of sideline dust up, you know, they had the collapse, and I think a lot of people, you know, credit it because they didn't have big. I'm not going to go that far, but he is a big part of the organization. You know, as I said, he's very close to Jeffrey Lurie. He'll tell you, he'll be the first to tell you Jeffrey bought him his house, so he's very loyal to Jeffrey.
Is that right? I didn't know that story.
Well, he means it by payment, you know.
Gotcha.
Because he's been so good to him over the years. So, yeah, I mean, if you go on the road, he's there. He's making sure that you know, even the little things from. There's all these little, you know, incidents of fans trying to. It's happened a couple times. You saw the drunken guy ask a question of Doug Peterson the one time. I don't know if you remember that. Somebody got in the locker room somewhere, and AJ's like, "Who's this guy?" And ever since that happened, Dom will sit at the front of the locker room and say, "All right, this guy's good. This guy's good." He'll do it personally. You know, he's almost, like I said, a jack of all trades. Whatever you need, he's going to perform. So, but his main role is obviously, you see the security. He's always next to Nick Sirianni. He's always next to Jeffrey when Jeffrey goes somewhere. That was where it started. Obviously, as you mentioned with Butch. That was where it started, and from a personnel standpoint, the background checks, you know, logistical stuff. As I said, he takes care of the players' needs. You know, if you see John Clark at the airport interviewing whomever, Dom's going to be right behind them. If the camera doesn't focus in too closely, basically, it's just. I don't know. Other than jack of all trades, I can't come up with another explanation. It is a wide-ranging job that, you know, it overlaps the business end, the football end, and everything in between.
Yeah, no doubt, man. He the mystique of Big Don. That was BS when they threw him off the sidelines for the rest of the regular season. I thought a 1-game suspension would do. They threw him off for the rest of the regular season, which made him get an additional job title, didn't it? So that he can be on the sidelines.
Yeah. Well, they made him part of the coaching staff. The problem is he wasn't part of the coaching staff. So from the NFL's perspective, you know, they didn't care until it became a thing. And then it was like, well, he's not on the coaching staff, so you got to take him off the field essentially. And that's why the Eagles made him a part of the coaching staff. So that kind of tells you what they think of him, because they wanted him there, and they fixed the issue by making him. So when you see, if you go to the Eagles website, you know, you can they'll have a front office directory, and he is part of the coaching staff along with his other jobs. As you said, he's got the longest job title in the history of the world.
Yeah, pretty funny. All right, Big Dom, good stuff, man. I'm a fan of Big Dom. He rocks the Kango too. So we got the Kango Krause up there. He's a Kango rocker too. I always watch. So we see Big Dom rocking the Kangos. Johnny Mac, good stuff there on the new contracts for Big Dom and for John Ferrari. I do expect more front office moves coming here, John. What are you expecting kind of coming up?
Yeah, definitely. You're going to see promotions, probably additions. they also, you're definitely going to see additions. You're definitely going to see promotions. It'll be interesting. Who replaces who? Are you going to have another assistant GM? Who would that be? How Alec was, I would say, if you're talking about football, so there's two sides to it: football operations and the scouting department. In football operations, I would say Alec was number two to 2A to Howie, and John would be 2B. And then probably next in line would probably be Bryce Johnston as the cap contract negotiator guy. And you lost two of them. So, I do think Adam Berry will get one of those jobs. Maybe he's more equipped for assistant general manager than contract negotiation. I don't know. Andrew, his twin brother, his history is finance, so you would think he can do it. But those are positions that have to be filled. And then on the scouting side, you lose Jeff Scott, who was, a senior personnel director, basically, VP of player personnel, focused on the pro side. So you have to replace him. I do know Ben Ajalana, former player, one of the scouts, is leaving after 4 years. So you're going to have to replace him. And there'll probably be other guys. If you're talking about, the biggest names there: Chuck Walls, Alan Wolking, Dave Caldwell, Joe Douglas are the former. Dave left for Florida. Joe Douglas is a former GM that's back. Matt Russell's a sort of GM that's been here for a while. He was technically vice president of player personnel with Denver for a long time. So I don't know if they're going to replace Dave. Phil Baia is probably in line for a promotion. He's a player personnel guy. So yeah, there'll be some moves on both sides of the spectrum.
Going to be interesting to see what the Birds do to add to that front office. John, I'll ask you, what's your concern level? I guess that might be not the right word to use, but in that ballpark on all these losses. I've said before that I've seen a lot of them go, and I was concerned in the past, but it just seems like the Eagles keep chugging along with the great front office, and everybody else who leaves can't quite replicate the level of success that Howie and the Eagles have. But it is a lot of dudes. It's a lot of turnover at pretty high profile spots. What is your level of concern on this being an impact on the Eagles front office, which has been probably the best in pro football for, I'd say, the last 7-8 years?
I think, the longer you go, the more bodies, the more difficult it is. And now it's getting up to a significant level. Now, Howie knows he's going to lose people. And has sort of set up a system where guys underneath are being prepared for taking the step forward. So they're definitely prepared for it because they know how this league works. And, just like Vic said, we're a farm team. Howie kind of thinks that they're a headhunting service for the rest of the league. So they definitely prepare for it. They definitely, you see, just to use Joe coming back, and Dave, before he left, Dave Caldwell, Matt Russell, they always bring in these former general managers to be part of the scouting department. Now, the guys who are here that are in charge are Chuck Walls and Alan Wolking, who, a lot of fans probably don't know. So they could be, if he wants to go from the scouting side, they could be assistant GMs to take the next step, one of those two. And then he could bring up Phil Baia, who is local guy. I think he's a Haddonfield guy, as a matter of fact. But Played football in college. Smart guy. So they're prepared. But anytime, I always say, anytime you got the copy, it's not as sharp as the original. So, I mean, the more people you lose, the more unlikely it is that you're going to be able to replace them all. But as long as you have the head of the snake, and that's Howie, I think you're going to be fine. But I don't think it helps, because it's not like, he can do everything by himself.
Right.
He's got to delegate, and there's a lot of really smart people that have contributed to the Eagles' success that are now employed elsewhere.
Yeah, and if you're talking about not enough dudes, in house, or you might have to bring people in from out of house, that's different also than promoting guys who've seen the way you guys do it. So it will be interesting to see, John, how it all plays out for the Philadelphia Eagles front office. But John Ferrari, Big Dom, the latest news, they get the contract extension. Big shout out to Big Dom and John Ferrari. All right, and John Ferrari. So good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, turning over here to the NFL draft. I want to thank everybody for being here. All right, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We appreciate all you guys for tuning in today and for being here. As always, you guys are such great listeners, and our audience is a very loyal audience. So we do appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. John, yesterday when we talked to Jeff Kerr, you brought up kind of the NFC East and all of their drafts and some of their off seasons. And I want to kind of run through that today a little bit and just look at how the NFC East is faring, because it does look to me like the NFC East is about to get a whole lot better. Now, that doesn't mean they're all going to be ready to contend this year, but you take a look at the Eagles. I think they're going to be, again, a great football team. How far they go, we will find out. You look at the Dallas Cowboys, obviously had one of the best offenses in football last year. They've now bolstered that defense significantly. How much better can they get? You look at the Commanders. Obviously, Jaden Daniels is what he is. He's a great football player, which means they have a chance every single year. Now, they came back to earth a little bit last year, or came back to earth in a big way last year. But I do think their future looks pretty bright. And then the New York Football Giants have finally started to make good decisions for the first time in maybe a damn decade. So it feels like, John, the NFC least or the NFC East could get a whole lot better here in the coming years, and maybe even this upcoming season that we have right in front of us.
Yeah, I mentioned that as you said with Jeff, because I see all these draft grades, and we all know draft grades are ludicrous. I mean, you're grading things before anybody steps onto a football field at the professional level. So, 3 years is how the Eagles approach it, as far as when you can start to look back and judge a draft class. And I think that's fair, but the reality is, because of Howie's reputation, the Eagles always get these great marks, and everybody, they did it again. They did. Maybe they did. But I do know it's not going to be immediate, other than potentially Mekhi Lemon, as we all expect. And by the way, I don't know if anybody, because they don't like to believe the local guys, Shepty was talking on, I believe it was the Pat McAfee show. Yeah, AJ's still going. So, the youth camp and all that kind of stuff, as I've said pretty consistently for a while, the belief around the league is that he's going to New England post June 1st. So there will be a spot for Mekhi Lemon. There could be a spot for Eli Stowers to get decent level of snaps, as, if you think about Dallas Goedert, Johnny Munt, and Eli Stowers. And the only reason I put Johnny Munt, I'm not trying to compare them as players, it's because you need the blocker in that mix. So, in other words, you're not going to play Dallas Goedert and Eli Stowers together too often.
That's what I mean. Like, how much 12 personnel, John, will they run where both of those guys are on the field?
I don't think much. That's the point. So it's either going to be Goddard with Munt. And
I think and you've done it, but I think that even needs more explanation, because I think fans, who are just look at the draft pick of Eli Stowers are going to default to, John, Well, tight end 1 is Goddard, and tight end 2 is the new draft pick, and they're going to be on the field together. And
exactly.
I don't really think it works that well.
No. Well, you saw it last year, and people say, well, Grant Calcaterra is not that good. Well, that's fine. But you saw the impact of having 2 sort of poor blockers on the field together. And, granted that wasn't the history of Dallas Goedert. He's been a pretty good blocker throughout his career, but last year he wasn't. And you saw the impact of having 2 poor blockers. And for some reason, the Eagles kind of continued to, for whatever reason, continued to trot it out there so much 12 personnel with 2 guys who weren't having good blocking seasons. So, that's what you would be in, but maybe even a little bit worse from the standpoint of Eli, 3 years off, basically being a quarterback. So, he's a work in progress. I think the upside is there because of his size, because of his athletic ability. He seems willing. So all of that is positive, I would say. But it's probably not realistic right away. So you're not gonna play a ton of snaps with those 2 on the field together. Unless Dallas can revert back to being a top-tier blocking tight end. I guess that's possible. That's the hope. And then you have Munt, who is a good blocker and has been for a long time, but he's very limited as a receiver. His career high, I'm just trying to look it up. His career high in snaps is 466 back in Minnesota in 2022. Last year it was 401. So that's pretty much, if you look at his career, he's with the Rams. The most snaps he ever had with the Rams were 213. He's only been over 400 3 times in his career. So he's not a full-time player by any stretch of the imagination, but yet everybody talks about him like he's Mark Bavaro. I don't get that, but he is a good blocker. And if you want to play 12 personnel, he's probably going to be on the field.
Right.
So, are you can get Stowers on the field if you want to take Goddard off, or vice versa.
You don't think they're in a situation where a Goddard trade could happen in the season, do you?
No,
right? Yeah, I don't either.
Not certainly not. I mean, so I think, and I said it, I think on draft night when we talked, I think Eli is about more of 2027 than 2026.
Right.
Similar to Markel Bell, the 3rd round pick. And then when you talk about the day 3 guys, other than Cole Wisniewski, and you can argue Micah Morris if somebody gets hurt, because obviously it's likely that somebody will get banged up at least for a couple games with Landon and all the issues he's dealing with. Not much opportunity for those guys to even find a way to the playing field. So all these draft grades, they're fine, but you better understand you're talking about 3 years out, not immediate, with the exception of Mekhi Lemon. Now, the Giants, because they stink, let's be honest, and and they've stunk for a while, and they're starting to manipulate things a little bit better. They had 2 picks in the top 10. In a draft where there's probably 15 good players by the Eagles' own estimation, and they got 2 of them, Arvell Reese and Francis Mauigoa. They got 2 of them. Washington didn't have a lot of picks. They got 1 of them, Sonny Styles. And Dallas, because of what they did with Micah Parsons, they had the extra 1st-round pick. And they got 1 of the top 15, Caleb Downs. And we'll see on Malachi Lawrence. I don't love that pick, but they got 2 first-round picks. So if you're talking about immediate, it's more likely that every team in the NFC East got more immediate help than the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, probably, not probably. Now, partially that has to do with the Eagles are better.
Right.
So
they needed it more. Everybody else needed it more, right?
Well, and the Eagles are better, and they were in a better position to get to top-tier talent. And they have more immediate need to force that top-tier talent on the field. But I'm very cautious of saying it just because I don't think this draft class is going to be immediate in a lot of places. Whereas other draft classes will be. And the Eagles might end up with the best draft class 3 years from now, especially if Stowers develops. And Markel Bell, that would be a home run. But immediate help, it's tough to argue that they're not fourth in the 4-team division.
I don't disagree, Johnny Mac, and they haven't made that many moves outside of the draft. I mean, they traded they signed Tariq Woolen, they traded for Dontavian Wicks.
Well, the Grenard trade is huge.
Grenard,
and Howie brings up that's part of the draft. That's part of the draft from the Eagles' perspective. So if you want to add that in, it closes the gap dramatically. In fact, they maybe did. But I don't think a lot of those draft rankings, and the ones that contextually place that in, well, they're probably right, but most of them don't. Because he's a big-time player. And I'm very confident that Eagles fans will fall in love with him early in the process.
Well, I agree with that, but for the rest of it, I think the offense you really are relying on kind of the changing scheme and Sean Mannion coming in here and doing something. So we will see about that. Gentlemen, you go to the Cowboys. You just mentioned them a little bit. You did talk about them. I believe they finished second in the NFC East last year. They had an okay season. They actually had the best record in division last year of anybody. I think it was 4-2 or 5-1, maybe even. They had a good year in the division. And a really good offense, John, a really good offense. So I don't know what you think of their additions. Obviously, you mentioned Caleb Downs and Malachi Lawrence. They've done some other things as well. But I happen to think that the Dallas Cowboys could have a big year in front of them if that defense can really take it to the next level. They got Christian Parker, who they hired away from the Philadelphia Eagles, who's been a really big part of the Eagles defensive staff. And now they got some good dudes for him to work with. So that's an interesting team to me, John, is the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, yeah, they're good coming in, not great, but obviously they've had a good offense for a long time, and their defense kind of fell off. So the goal is to get that back up to speed. Hiring Christian Parker, getting away from Matt Eberflus. In that style of defense, that should help. Still need the edge rusher, and they tried to carpet bomb it with not only Malachi Lawrence, who I didn't have as a first-round pick, but he was a bridge pick. Some people did. And then Ja'Shawn Barham as well later in the third round. So they're taking a couple shots at it, and they even took LT Overton on day 3, so you can see the carpet bomb effect. Maybe one of those guys helps, but that still seems like a big weakness on paper. Very strong in the middle with up front with Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark. Linebackers are still an issue. Now they traded for D Winters. There's a lot of talk Nakobe would go there. He didn't. You have Overshown coming back, healthier. So maybe that helps. And the secondary, Caleb Downs was a huge get. My best pick in the first round. Because they need a lot of help and he can play a lot of different positions. He's a very versatile guy. And I think Christian Parker sees what Big did with Cooper DeJean, and he's going to try something similar, different. Cooper's more of a corner / slot, whereas Downs is more of a safety / slot. But I think he's going to put him in the slot to begin with. And we'll see how much of an impact he can have. But
Who's the safety they signed too? They signed somebody. I think it was Jalen Thompson.
Yeah, they got Thompson. They still have Malik Hooker, Marquise Bell. So they have some bodies, but they're still a little bit concerned about that secondary. But getting Caleb Downs helps a lot. And maybe Siobhan Rebel can turn into something. But Deron Bland looks like a shell of himself. Maybe he gets better with Christian, but I still see quite a few issues on the back seven that Christian Park is going to have to overcome.
Yeah, it does help with Caleb Downs. They did sign Jalen Thompson to a 3-year, $33 million deal. They also have Kobe Durant at corner. I don't know how much he's going to do or if he's more of a depth piece. So we will see about that with the Dallas Cowboys. They didn't lose much. I mean, they traded away Osa, but that made sense because they have so much on the interior there. Same with Solomon Thomas and then Jadeveon Clowney. But I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to be a lot better. I don't know how much better, but I think they are going to be a better football team this year. You go to the New York Giants, John, they are finally making some good decisions. They signed, Isaiah Likely in free agency, a couple other dudes there, some good draft picks that they made. But they also had some pretty key losses, John. I mean, you trade away Dexter Lawrence and replace him with Arvell Reese as an edge rusher. I mean, that's great and all, but, you got a lot of edge rushers and not a lot of dudes in there to stop the run. So I don't really know what they're thinking with that. I think the Giants offseason was just okay. I don't think it's been as good as I thought it would be with John Harbaugh, but overall they are making some better decisions. And I will still rip though Joe Shane. I don't think he's done a very good job for them.
Well, I don't think you're going to have to worry. I mean, eventually. John Harbaugh is going to want his guy in there, and it'll come, I would think, sooner rather than later. But I do think I focus more because I think John's in charge. That to me is the keyer part. And they're getting better. I mean, they signed a bunch of, ex-Ravens, as you would expect. Mainly, Isaiah Likely at tight end, who's a very good player. Patrick Ricard at fullback. So you can see what they're trying to do. Now they don't have Cam Scatterboo isn't coming off an injury isn't Derrick Henry, to say the least. So they still need to find somebody to take advantage of it. The offensive line's getting better. Andrew Thomas is a very good player. Now you add Mauigoa inside. They're going to play him at guard, which I think is the right thing to do. So if you have two big-time players, then all of a sudden the rest of the group, which is Illuminor, it's okay. He's okay. Schmitz at center is okay. Runyon's okay. And then you got Star. Then you got something. And then how do you help Jackson Dart? Well, they brought in Malachi Fields, not a big fan of that. More of a contested catch guy, but you're going to be putting a lot on the plate of Malik Neighbors, but he's really good. And likely, to me, is their second best receiver in that group. They still have Slayton. I'm surprised though they haven't made a move at running, a more meaningful move at running back. To take advantage of what they're building with the big time fullback and the better offensive line. Defensively, yeah, you're not replacing Dexter. That's like AJ. You're not replacing him.
No.
So, but he wanted out. So
he wanted a new contract. Did he want out or did he want a new contract? And they wouldn't.
Well, he wanted a new contract. In a lot of ways, you can get.
I don't know what that dude does over there. What do you mean you don't want that defense? Would be legitimately scary with Dexter Lawrence between all those great pass rushers.
Well, I had Dexter Lawrence all in between all those great pass
and they were one of the better D lines in the league, weren't they?
Well, they still weren't one of the better defenses.
Huh.
So it's like
I don't think it was because of Dexter, but
well, no, either do I. But you got to make these difficult decisions with players that are good players, in this case, great players. But how far do you want to go? I would have kept him. I'm not advocating it, but I understand why they moved on. And you can give Jordan Davis a lot of credit for that, for his contract. So in a roundabout way, how the Eagles do business helps them again. But the Eagles did it with Jalen Phillips. They did the same thing. Everybody's got a walk-away number.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder about the walk-away number.
Respect is no Dexter Lawrence.
That's not the point. The point is they walked away from a player they wanted.
Right.
That they wanted him and they walked away. They don't. If everything was copacetic, they didn't want to trade AJ. But they believed it reached a point that addition by subtraction. They're not going to get better from a pure talent standpoint by moving on from him. So it's not unique to the New York Giants. That's why Grenard is here. If you want to look at it from the other side, same thing. I mean, I thought Rob Brzezinski was going to cry when he was talking about the trade. They didn't want to get rid of him. They just felt, and some of these decisions are wrong. Some will be right. But it's not like it's unique. But I get, the standpoint of the Giants' recent history is not good, but I think people have to start coming in the grip that John Harbaugh is going to be better.
Yeah, he definitely will be better. There's no doubt about that. I agree with that completely.
So, but they have a long way to go, though. It's not like I could see them being competitive, getting near 8-9 wins, but this is a multi-year process, especially with a young quarterback. And they really need to get a better running back to help out that young quarterback, which is ironic. They probably would have drafted Jeremiah Love, even with the, they would have been criticized because they weren't able to take advantage of Saquon all those years. But they would have done it, and it would have been the smart thing, but he didn't get there. So now you're stuck with trying to cobble it together with Cam Scatterbo coming off an injury and Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary and those guys, which isn't going to scare anybody.
Are you a Jackson Dart believer?
He's a lot better than I expected. And Vic is a Jackson Dart believer, so I tend to lean towards, I go, okay, what did I miss?
Yeah, but see, here's my question about that. Is Vic a Jackson Dart believer in the long term, or does he understand that he can beat you in the short term because of his playmaking ability? I saw a lot of off schedule with him, John. That's all I'm saying. I do not know that if you take away some of that off schedule, he's going to be a viable player in the pocket who picks you apart and wins games, by reading, dissecting, and throwing the ball on time and on target. I didn't see that much from Jackson Dart.
Well, that sounds like it'd be a scouting report for somebody. In a lot of ways, that's modern football. So from a standpoint, I just and Vic doesn't blow. I know well enough now that he doesn't blow smoke up your ass. And he likes him, and he thinks he's a pain in the ass to deal with, and that resonates with me.
All right.
So, I mean, coming in, I was like, Jackson Dart, but I defer to Vic on that one, and he likes him a lot.
All right, fair enough. I'm not too much of a believer on Jackson Dart. I just don't think his playing style is going to last very long. But we will see about that. He was reckless. I mean, it's one thing to say Jalen Hurts runs, but he was reckless. So I don't think that's going to last that long. We'll see how he modifies that. And then, John, closing up the NFC East, the Washington Commanders. They've signed a lot of people in the last couple of years. I didn't like who they signed last offseason. This offseason, they pick up Odafe Owe for a 4-year, $100 million deal.
I didn't like that either, man.
Me neither. Leo Chenal, they signed him from the Chiefs. They got the tight end Chigo Okomo, or however you pronounce that one. Running back Rashad White, De'Ami Brown, Van Jefferson. They got a lot of dudes over there in Washington. I think what makes it all work, though, is Jaden Daniels. I mean, and when you have a quarterback like that, now that's a quarterback that I think is pretty damn good. And if he can stay healthy, I think he's got a bright future. But what do you make of where the Commanders are right now? It feels like, they obviously had that huge year where they go to the NFC Championship game. They come all the way back to earth. Where will they fall this year? Johnny Mack, how do you see that football team right now?
Well, yeah, so much depends on the health of Jaden Daniels. I mean, I look at their playmakers and I'm not in awe. You got Krause, Merritt, Rashad White at running back. They drafted Katron Allen, so Jeff Kerr will tell you they're in good shape, but I don't think they're in good shape. Penn State guy. On day 3, Terry McLaurin. He's been a great player, but to me, he's never been at the tippy top of the wide receivers in this league. Then you got guys like McCaffrey and De'Ami Brown and Treylon Burks. Like, who's that scaring? They drafted Antonio Williams, so I'm sure they hope they can get him on the field early. Now, Okonkwo, Chig Okonkwo is a guy that a lot of people speculated the Eagles might go after in free agency. I do think he's a good young player. I think he'll help. The offensive line is sort of just average. Connerly's got to get better. If he does, Sam Cosmi's a pretty good player. Tunsil's not as good as he was, but he's still okay. And then defensively, you bring in Sonny Styles, which is, a give and take, because probably means Bobby Wagner isn't coming back now. Bobby Wagner's whatever. Got to look up how old he is, 35, 36. But man, he can still play. Guy's going to the Hall of Fame.
Do you think it's him and Sonny Styles on the field?
Well, he's not signed. Right now it's Frankie Luvu and something.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I don't think they're bringing Wagner back. So, and no, Luvu's not nearly as good, even at his advanced age. So I don't think that helps. And now they also brought in Leo Chenal, who's a pretty good player. So to me, it could be Styles and Chenal eventually. And then, always your top pass rusher. Come on, stop.
Can Chenal line up on the edge at all?
No, he's all ball. They have Chason and probably Chason and Owe will be their top edge rushers, and that's not good enough. Inside, they're okay. They still a pain. Kinlaw's there. Tim Settle's okay. And then the secondary's been terrible for a long time. You get Trey Amos, Sanders still didn't have a good season. Hopefully he can have a bounce back. Amik Robertson, I always liked in Detroit, but, he's limited. He seems to play well in small doses, Amik Robertson. Like, you're like in desperate quarters. Detroit had so many injuries, and you're like, they're screwed. And he goes out and he plays well. But if he's got to play 15 games, he starts to get exposed. He's that type of player to me. So they still got a lot of holes. I mean, they're a team that will be carried by Jaden Daniels for good or for bad. If he's healthy and he's cooking, versus if he's not healthy, and that's probably not the spot you want to be in.
We'll see what ends up happening. That's kind of a look at the NFC East there. John, just kind of give me your obviously it's way too early to make any grandiose, who this team's going to be good, this team's going to win here, but just your early thought right now on who's going to be the class of the East this year.
Well, the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles are the class of the East. They'd have to do a lot wrong to not be in the mix to win the division again. Doesn't mean they'll win it. I do think Dallas has a chance to be in the same realm. And then the Giants I think the Giants have a better roster, as sad as that sounds, as Washington from 1 through 53. But, they have the quarterback, Washington. So depends how you look at it. But I still think it's the two teams at the top and the two teams at the bottom. I just think that one team at the bottom is clearly looking like it's going in the right direction, and the other team is sort of wait and see mode. I don't like a lot of things that Washington has done since they were in that championship game, and I was fearful of that because they didn't belong in that championship game.
Yeah. I was critical of them last summer because I thought that they just signed all the wrong people, and that turned out to be true. We will see if they make the bounce back. The great equalizer there, obviously, is Jaden Daniels, who's a hell of a young player. We'll see how he does in year 3 for Jaden Daniels. That's a look at the NFC East, everybody. Appreciate all you guys for being here today. Don't forget to hit that like button. We will see who wins the East. Last year it was the Eagles in first, Cowboys in second, Commanders in third, Giants in fourth. The Eagles had a record of 11-6. The Cowboys had a record of 7-9-1. The Commanders were 5-12. Hard to believe after being in the NFC Championship game. And then the Giants were 4-13. So if you make a prediction for each team, where do you land? Do the Eagles get 12 wins? Do the Cowboys get 10 wins? Do the Commanders get 8, 9, 10 wins? Do the Giants get 8, 9, 10 wins? Feels like every team in the East could win more games this year than they did last year, and we will see what that means for the standings in the East. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, moving into the more Eagle-focused discussion here, somebody called me out yesterday and said, so Zander, you think this draft class is just a bunch of depth? And that line of thinking kind of came from my conversation with you, where we've run down each of the players and talked about what their role might be on the team this year. That's kind of what it looks like to you too, right, John? I mean, a depth draft class outside of
immediately, yeah. And for 2026, other than Mekhi Lemon,
that's what the comment was in reference to, though. Yeah.
Now, long term, I think there's a very big upside for Stowers and Markel Bell, but Markel's not getting on the field unless somebody gets hurt. Bottom line. And Eli, as I just explained, it's going to be very difficult for him to be on the field in 12 personnel with Dallas Goedert. So you have to make a decision. Is it Dallas and Johnny Munt, or is it Eli Stowers and Johnny Munt? And he'll be on the field, but I don't think as much as people think. And then the day 3 guys are basically all depth, with the exception of potentially Cole Wisniewski, but I do believe Howie's going to bring in a safety at some point. So I think ultimately they'll be all depth. Cole Payton will either be the third quarterback or the practice squad quarterback, depending on what they do with Tanner McKee and Andy Dalton. Micah Morris, slight chance he could get out there based on injury, because the Eagles don't have a lot of veteran depth. But, I wrote about Michael Jordan yesterday, not the basketball player, the football player. They had him in for a tryout. They're obviously looking for some veteran depth that can play guard. And if they get that, well, that knocks him down another peg. He's going to be here, but he's not going to play, most likely. And then Uar Bernard's a multi-year project, and I mean multi-year project. And Keyshawn James Newby is probably a lesser version of Antoine Powell-Ryland that everybody was so excited about. So it's funny, I always compare it. Somebody told me, I don't know if this is bullshit, but somebody told me, some of the ladies watching can tell me, and God bless the woman of the world that raised children. But it's got to be a horrible process to go through to be pregnant. A lot of pain, obviously. And somebody told me, and I don't know if this is true, but there's women have sort of a chemical in their systems, whatever, that makes them forget how horrible pregnancy was, and they'll do it again. I think Eagles fans forget what happened last year, and they'll do it again, and they get excited about Antoine Powell-Ryland and Keyshawn James Newby. I mean, they're not going to be relevant. He might start on the practice squad. He might develop, but
boy, if that's true, Johnny Mac, women are putting us to shame today. As the chemical works for our sports fandom, and it works for them birthing, keeping basically the humanity alive.
Well, I don't think there's a chemical. I think people, more likely they just wipe it out. They wipe it out of their mind.
That's a shout out to the ladies here today, John. But men are whining about sports fandom, and the women
women are 10 times tougher than men. I've always said that 10 times. I would never go through anything like that. So, a million times tougher than men. So, but yeah, a little bit joke. I hope people understand it's a joke.
Yeah, I think you're good.
Keyshawn James Newby is not relevant to the Eagles' edge rushing situation this year. But people will talk themselves into shit. So I don't know who gave you a crap, but you're exactly right. You're not going to get a ton of immediate help from this draft class.
What kind of year one expectation do you have for Mekhi Lemon?
Well, that's got to be big. Ironically, if by some miracle you get A.J. Brown, you could add him to that column too. Then it's not big. But it's going to have to be big. As I said, I'm not worried about week 1, but I am worried about, week 7, week 8. He's got to be the number 2. Because there's some limitations to Dontavian Wicks from a speed standpoint, explosion standpoint. So he's not going to be able to, be a consistent big play threat. So he needs to be on the field. He's the one guy that needs to be on the field.
I think he's going to be on the field for sure. How much he gets the ball, I don't know. I mean, boy, I tell you what, John, the anticipation is certainly building, though, on this Sean Mannion-led offense. I don't know how different it's going to look. I mean, you have me conflicted because –
well, I'm conflicted.
Right. Well, I look at everything they've done. I look at everything they seemingly are trying to do. And then I talk to you, and you're just like, they're probably going to fall back to what they've done. And I'm like, I don't disagree with John, but I also need to believe also what I'm seeing. And they're making a lot of moves that seem to fall in line with this new style of offense that they evidently want to run. And it's created a conflict for me of like,
well,
Celia said this to me yesterday. He said, I listened to your morning show and I heard John say basically that if it doesn't work, they're going to fall back to what they do. And he's like, I don't disagree with them, but I would ask him, would that mean it's a failure of an offseason because they've made so many moves that look like they've gone in the direction of the new offense? And I think it's a fair question to ask.
Well, I'm conflicted, just as you said, but they're not conflicting ideas. Like from the standpoint of that answer, number one, I think that's overblown. I think Howie, and I wrote about that, I think Howie went best player available on his board, wasn't getting players to fit that offense. In fact, people can talk to the skill position players and say, well, they're inside players. But you then look at the offensive linemen, which are giant, massive, Jeff Stoutland-like offensive linemen. And even Stowers, again, I think the perception is it's all about the passing game. Well, the running game demands a tight end like George Kittle or Tucker Kraft or somebody who can do both. Not somebody who's just so I think people are off base with that part of it. that they were drafting players specifically for Sean Mannion, and I know because I've asked that Howie would push back that dramatically, push back on that dramatically. They don't do that for anybody, even Vic. So number one, I don't believe that, but from the standpoint of would it be a failure? Well, not necessarily. I think the failure would be going through a season if it's not working and doing it just for the sake of doing it. I think that's a failure. I don't think it's a failure to try to do something different. Now, I disagree. They think people caught up to them. Now, I disagree with that. I think it was more personnel driven.
I agree, but doesn't it seem like they've made moves to that are in line with that thought process? So if it doesn't work, it would technically mean that some of the moves you made in hindsight weren't the right moves.
Well, what moves are we talking about?
Like getting rid of Jeff Stoutland, that's a simple one right there. Getting rid of Jeff Stoutland.
Well, coaching and personnel is different to me. They definitely coaching have brought in certain guys to help Sean Mannion with his system, which is projected to be the Shanahan system. So that's why Ryan Mahaffey is here. That's why Chris Cooper's here. So to me, that's a little bit different than personnel. And again, a lot of it's about the running game. That's the run game coordinator and the offensive line coach because they want to run this wide zone scheme and stretch scheme. And Jeff didn't want to run it, and he likes doing something different. So, yeah, they've definitely done things on the coaching staff to run this system. But even there, they've straddled the fence because Jamal Singleton's back and Aaron Moorhead's back. And, they've sort of cut the deck in half and haven't just reloaded the whole thing. And obviously, most notably, Nick Sirianni's the head coach. And then you got a mixture of Josh Broussard and Jared Johnson, which are completely out the door of why they're here and what that means. And Parks Frazier, I should have mentioned, most notably, was already here, but has experience in Miami with a similar scheme. So they're trying to straddle the fence there. And that's a little bit different, but they're clearly going to try to run the scheme. That's their goal. To me, the failure would be the best case scenario is that everything's great and then they hit the ground running and it's phenomenal. That's easy. And you fully morph into that scheme. The worst case scenario for me is it's not working, but you're trying to prove something. Like, I don't know what, and you just run it for the sake of running it, even though you're not effective. That's the worst case scenario. The most likely scenario is half and half, some new stuff, some old stuff, and morph it together. And maybe the most likely scenario is what happened with Kellen Moore, because we already saw it, which is you try it out. It's not working. You scale it back.
Boy, this is conflicting for me. I mean, I agree with everything you said there. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But John, in theory, then the Eagles are relying on Jalen Hurts to be a different quarterback than he's ever been to be successful in what the projected new scheme is. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say he's going to be doing a lot of stuff that he hasn't typically done. A lot of under center, a lot of play action, a lot of traditional play action, a lot of turning his back to the defense. So yeah, it's pretty drastic change for a guy entering his sixth season as a starter with the success that he had. Pretty drastic change, which I've argued pretty silly change, to be honest.
And do you think that's driven by the front office?
Boy, that's a tough question. Well, it's not driven by Howie.
It'd be driven by Jeffrey if it was anybody, right?
I think it's driven by Nick Sirianni's belief that's what Jeffrey wants.
That's a great answer. I think you might be right too. Like, it's not he wants to do it, but he knows that if he doesn't do it, Jeffrey Lurie's not going to be happy, and that means he might get fired.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's fueled by his belief that last year was so ugly, and people have just run out of patience with the ball control, low risk, ugly way of winning, which is, I get it, but I don't understand it. I get, boy, it's tough in this league. So many teams, like all these guys people want to be. Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell. The Eagles have had success more than all of them.
Yeah.
It's like, does that not register to anybody?
I think it registers, but clearly the aesthetics seem to be more important, John. And I'm guilty of it too at times. I mean, they won games last year, and after I'd be like, man, we got to do something about this offense, man. This is one of the ugliest offenses on the planet.
Well, everybody does. I mean, there's nothing. One thing I said, there's nothing wrong with trying to get better. Nothing. Never. So, get Jalen Hurts better at the things he's not as good at. Every player's got strengths. Every player's got weaknesses. You should be doing that with every player. Try to get them better at their weaknesses. No issues with that. And hopefully, and there has been a lot of evolvement over the years. So I don't have any problem saying, hey, we got to do more of this. We got to do more of this because of this. That to me is healthy. The unhealthy part is, forgetting the significant success of the past because it's not pretty enough. I mean, I never, it's the argument you mentioned yesterday. List season is coming up. It's the same argument. It's like the same people argue conflicting things. That's what's conflicting to me. It's like you want the pretty quarterback, but then when they say the pretty quarterback's better than Jalen Hurts, you lose your fucking minds. So you see the hypocrisy there?
Yeah.
So can you turn Jalen Hurts into?
But I agree with the hypocrisy, but you do agree that it is by default a tough thing to gauge as a fan because you watch it and it's pretty freaking ugly, John. I mean, at times it's really ugly.
Oh, but it's been ugly the whole way.
I know, but that's
other
what
than the winning.
I think look, I get it. The hypocrisy is certainly evident, but even John, even in the Super Bowl year, up until almost the playoffs,
there were so many ugly games in the Super Bowl.
I remember you and I saying, and it got to a point, John. I think you shifted almost after the first playoff game or right before, and you're like, "There's just not that many pins left. They could do this." But earlier, before, you were like, "I don't know that they can go the distance playing like this." And I think everybody, including all of our listeners, agreed with you because it was an ugly offense. Now it reared its head, and now, I think people are conflicted. There's a lot of winning, but I don't think we can continue on playing like this.
Well, to go back to my my poor comparison about pregnant women, but similar to the Super Bowl season because of the final two games. How many times have I said that? Because of the final two games wiped away any memory of the ugliness of that offense. Wiped it away. passing offense, obviously, mainly. If that Rams game just, again, the interior of the offensive line holds up, the Rams, it's a completely different world. It's a completely different Eagles world because they're out in the divisional round. I forgot who was in coverage. It might have been Bond. Slipped, and Higbee was wide open. All he had to do was toss him the football, and he would have been ahead with a few seconds left. And that's the margin of error they were dealing with for most of the season with the ugly passing offense. But they overcame it, and then they had the big game against Washington, who shouldn't have been in that game, and obviously the tremendous Super Bowl, which was, I'll say to my dying breath, was defense driven. I don't know how anybody could argue that. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes can't cross the 50 until 2 minutes.
Pretty amazing that people do argue that, but I've heard people argue it.
Oh, I all the time. So
that was one of the great defensive performances in a Super Bowl.
It's the best. I argue
maybe of all time.
Certainly in the modern
right,
free agency era. It was the greatest defensive performance. And that was kind of masked because they got some garbage points late. But, I mean, it was completely dominant defensive performance. And then, when you do win, what happens? Well, you won. So you're not going to change when you win. There was no desire to, let's do it again. The team showed up and they said, we're going to stop Saquon Barkley and we're going to force Jalen Hurts to throw the football. And it became this ugly mismatch of what it became.
So what is the right logical next step if you want to, because it does make sense to want to improve the offense, right? We can agree to that. Even with the success that they've had, it does make sense to want to improve it, right?
Yeah, you should always want to improve. Everybody should
always want to improve. All right. So with that being said, then what is the right next step for this team? Is it, if we live in a world where they are going to try and change the West Coast, is it you marginally make Jalen better at that style of football? I don't think you want to fully turn him into something he's not, and you've talked about that before. Why would you? Well, you wouldn't ask Brock Purdy to play Jalen style. Why are you asking Jalen to play that style? So where is the gray area, John? Where is the middle ground that actually makes sense? Is it just getting the ball out quicker for him? Is it giving him quicker routes underneath where he can, read easier? Is it giving him read 1 and 2 on the same side of the field so he doesn't have to, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of anything here where it makes sense to bridge what they're trying to do with the skill set of the quarterback, who's really made all of his hay, and it's a lot of hay, by beating teams, being a dual threat player. If they're not going to ask him to be that anymore, well, he's got to beat teams in other ways. What's the right way to bridge that gap?
Well, if he's not going to do that anymore, be a dual threat player, I think they're screwed. It's just the reality of the situation. I think you better start coming up with a contingency, not immediately, but and try to make the most of it. That's what you have to do. But I think, it's tough for me to say what should they do within this offense, because I think it's silly that they're trying to do this offense. So it's tough for me to wrap my head around that. I guess, you're not going to cut the field in half in this offense a lot. You're not going to go high-low read. That's stuff you do with young quarterbacks who can't process at all. And that gets very redundant, and very quickly defenses can snip that out.
Well, is processing to you a deficiency for Jalen Hurts?
I don't think he's at the top level, but I don't think it's a deficiency. I think he's top half, I would say, in the league. I don't think there's a lot of top tier processors left. but obviously he's slow getting rid of the football, but a lot of that is the off schedule stuff and holding on to the football, which skews the numbers. So
it's a habit. It's a habit. He's been doing it his whole life, and it makes sense. He's been running around people, at every level.
Yeah. So all these numbers, it's such a contextual game. It bothers me when people try to boil it down to something simple, but I mean, number one, I've said, and this is why I don't know why they're operating the way they're operating. I thought they'd get Brian Daboll in here because he had experience as a play caller, and they build the offense around Jalen Hurts, and they'd be off and running. And I think that was the original plan.
Right.
Now, I think this offense has to do more. As I said, I've been saying this, and I might be on an island. I think I am on an island because I haven't heard anybody else say it. I think it was more about fixing the running game than the passing game.
But have their actions aligned with that?
Yeah. They did it last year in season. They put them under center. They got a little bit better. That's when Saquon kind of had a little spurt because he had more options.
Yeah,
They were seeing a lot of junk in the running game. And what happened is they wanted to continue and bring in experts at that. They're not the experts. And that's what created the disconnect with Stout. And so you wanted to bring in somebody with experience in that style. So first was McDaniel, who ran it with Frank Smith very successfully, and Devin A. Shane and all that stuff. And you sort of go to down the list, and they got to Sean Mannion and Ryan Mahaffey. So, and that'll help if they fix the running game. That'll help dramatically. All of a sudden, you're in second, third, manageable, and the rest takes care of itself. I think that's the ultimate goal. If you had to pin me down, because I don't think it's like everybody's so hyper focused on the passing game. I don't think it's about utilizing the middle of the field more. I don't think it's about throwing the 35 times a game. I think it's about fixing first down. And I've said that consistently. Because that's what they were trying to do last year by doing it. And people forget they did it last year. And that was not to fix the passing game with the play action. Everybody got hyper focused on that.
Right.
To fix the running game. Now, I'm not saying the passing game isn't part of it. But Jalen was still comfortable with all the hitch routes and the four birds and all the shit people hate. Because he's a college, that's what college quarterbacks do. They throw to open receivers. How many college quarterbacks do you see Phillip Rivers throwing the football before the guy even makes the outcut? How many?
Very few, if any.
They throw to open receivers. That's what they're used to. So how do you get receivers open? You win one-on-one with hitch routes, which Devontae and AJ did at a very high level for a very long time, which didn't work as well last year. I find it ironic that I say it all the time. No team has had more success with four birds than the Green Bay Packers, which is kind of ironic to me. That's sort of more of the modern game that is a staple of everybody's offense because it has to be, because that's the quarterbacks they're being given.
John, you always say one of the hardest things for teams to do is be honest with themselves. Are they being honest with themselves?
Well, if it's about what I think it's about, yes. If it's about getting, Jalen Hurts playing like Brock Purdy, no, I don't think they're being honest with themselves.
Yeah, because then their entire premise of their changes is built on a lie, which could be.
But ultimately, if you and I have no idea, but ultimately, if you pin me down and say pick, I don't think they're trying to turn him into Brock Purdy. These people are good football coaches. They're smart. I don't think they're doing that. Now, the one complication is, as you pointed out, does he not want to run the football anymore? And if he doesn't want to add the running game into his, if he wants to take that out of his skill set because of whatever reason, wants to prolong his career, whatever, then you got a big problem. You got a really big problem. Because then he's just a pocket quarterback. But I don't think that's the case either. And if it's the organization standpoint, if we want to increase his shelf life, well, you better pull the plug on that. Take advantage of what you have when you have it.
There could be a lot of cooks in that kitchen too. It's not just as simple as Jalen. You know what I mean? It feels like agents are at play. Staffs are at play.
Yeah, it's complicated.
It's a deep industry. There's a lot of stuff going into that. So that's a tough one to gauge. Tough one.
A lot of context, as I said, but people don't like context. They want a simple answer.
There are no simple answers in football.
Kevin Patullo.
Yeah.
Kevin Patullo bad, Sean Mannion good.
Right.
Yeah. And I do think they're too risk averse. I do think, but I've always thought that. But it worked.
Well, we'll see where they end up with it after this season, everybody. It's going to be a fun, exciting season, I think, for a lot of different reasons that we just talked about. I mean, where do they go? What do they do? How do they do it? What does it look like? Does it work? Is Sean Mannion the next hot coaching candidate, or is he done and dusted and fired in a year and back to the land of irrelevance? Who knows? We will find out what he does. We all hope, obviously, he's successful, which could mean that he's gone, but I think that's better than the alternative, folks. So we will see what they do here. Obviously, they've added some players here in the draft. We just talked about some of them. Makai Lemon, I think, has the biggest chance to make a big impact. Obviously, their 20th overall draft pick. So the Birds did that. And, well, I tell you, man, I am getting excited for the year, John, just because of the anticipation. I don't know where they're going. I don't know what they're doing. You've convinced me just that basically it could go either direction and that I shouldn't be completely sold that it's the new offense, but they've done a lot of things that also make me believe it could be the new offense. So I'm kind of
let me emphasize, they are trying to run this offense. I'm not denying that.
Right. You're more thinking that they're going to default back if it doesn't go as planned.
Yes. Because why wouldn't they? Somewhat meaningful move this late in the process. The Super Bowl champion Seahawks signed Dante Fowler to a 1-year deal for $5 million.
Not bad. Formerly with the Cowboys, right?
Yeah, per Tom Pelissero. So still some moves happening. Some of these guys, they don't want to mess around early in the process, but could help them. Could be a still pretty good situational pass rusher.
Well, we'll see if that helps the Seahawks. I think the NFC is going to be pretty good again. We'll take a look at that fully soon, later, maybe later even this week. But still a lot of stuff to happen here. It still feels like the Eagles are a great team, John, in terms of the NFL. But it does feel like it's more on edge than it's been. There's more of an opportunity for it to go great or not go great.
Well, definitely offensively. Defensively, I think they're pretty rock solid. So I do think that the floor is still pretty high for the team. The ceiling is the concern. There's more uncertainty. Over the past number of years, you knew they were going to be good. It was just a matter of how good. Now I think you still have the ceiling. I mean, if everything clicks and everybody stays healthy, they could still be a Super Bowl level team. But I think there's way more moving parts than there typically is on the offensive side that could be boom or bust, so to speak.
We will see, Johnny Mac. We will see, my friend. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. We will talk a little defense now for the Philadelphia Eagles. We just talked a lot of offense and what those moves look like. They went heavy offense in the NFL draft. We talked about the NFC East today as well. I think the Cowboys are a real contender this year. I think the Commanders could win more games this year. I think the Giants could win more games this year. Will the Eagles be able to elevate and stay at the top of the division? We will find that out. John, when you go over to the defensive side of the ball, you talked about obviously the addition of Jonathan Grenard and how impressive that's been. Do you think this defense will be even better than they were a year ago? I know their numbers didn't jump off the page last year. I think a lot of that is because of the offense, but I digress on that. Do you think the defense could be better this year than they've been in the past?
Well, I don't know about 2024, but I do think they can be better than they were last season. 2024, obviously, we just talked about, they dominated in the Super Bowl. It was the first number one defense in Vic Fangio's storied career. Think about that. So I don't know if you ever can predict they're going to be number one. That's difficult to do. But they have a chance to be really good. And on the other hand, can Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean possibly get any better than they were last season? I don't know. Probably a little bit of a downgrade. On the other hand, can Jalen Carter get back to what he was in 2024 from a health standpoint? Maybe. Can Jordan Davis keep getting better? Maybe. Can Morrow keep getting better? Maybe. Grenard's going to be, I think, an upgrade. Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt, certainly good enough. Reek Woolen should be better than Adoree Jackson. We can all agree on that. Zach Ballin, it's going to be tough to live up to 2024, but he can live up to what he did in 2025. I think Jahad Campbell is going to be better than Nakobe. Most people wouldn't agree, but I think he's a better player. I think he should have played last year. I'm honest about that. I think that Nakobe love was all about intangible stuff, which is big. I love the dude, but I think Jahad's just a better player. And then you got some weakness at safety. But I mean, I'll take that front and everything else, with the exception of safety, more than anybody else, I would say, in the league.
So you do think Grenard's an upgrade over Phillips?
Yeah, for what they want, yeah, which is the pass rush. You could argue, although he's a very good run defender too. I just think people don't realize he's not as big.
Right, he looks more like an edge, and I think that maybe boxes him in a little bit for what people think.
Phillips has got more versatility. You can play him inside, but the Eagles didn't need to play him. They did occasionally, but a few handful of snaps, but not often. He can't do that. You think the
style of Grenard changes who they would go with that edge number two? Like, for example, you have Phillips, who's a kind of a versatile player. Maybe that allows you to put Jalix on the field if you feel like he's a better pass rusher versus Nolan, who's better all around. But with a player like Grenard, does that mean they'd want Nolan on the field as opposed to Jalix more? How do you see that?
Well, there could. I mean, you could argue, Nolan's a better run defender, so stick him as, on the field early and put Jalix on there on third down. You could make that argument. I think they'll do more of the rotational thing. But Grenard's got to be on the field most third downs, obviously. He's not going to be the one. He's going to get plenty of snaps. And then the other guys will have to split it. And Ebiketie will have to get the scraps. He's not going to play nearly as much as what people expected. How
many edges do they have right now, John? 4?
Well, they have Joe Tryon as well. They drafted the new guy, which I said, the new APR, KJN. Let's say, Jose Rodriguez is, a futures guy. So, they have almost 90 players at this stage. So there's more than that. But obviously the main people that are going to play are Grenard, Nolan, Jalix Hunt, and Arnold Ebiketie. And Vic tends to boil it down to 3 more than 4. So that's why I say scraps. And then you have Joe Tryon. So there's depth. And even, they signed Josh Weiroo, who's more of again, another international player, undrafted. So, they have more bodies. With Jose Ramirez, I have to make that clear. The Cleveland Indians, great hitter. But yeah, so they have more bodies. But the 4 top guys are pretty clear. And Joe Tryon would be number 5.
Interesting. Interesting there. It will be interesting to see what they do at the other side of the edge. Who do you feel like, John, has a better chance at a long term with the Eagles? Nolan Smith or Jalix Hunt?
Yeah, well, I've said for a while, I think Jalix has passed him. Although, ironically, because Jonathan Grenard is going to be mostly on the right side, I think that helps Nolan because he's more of a natural left end, even though he's undersized. He's more comfortable there. Left overhang, I should say.
Right.
So I think that will help him a little bit. Jalix is more used to the right side, but he's going to have to get more used to the left side. So maybe that helps Nolan a little bit in the short term.
We'll see there. What is your projection on Jalix Hunt this year?
Yeah, I think there's probably a little bit of a downtick from a perception standpoint because I don't think he's going to be leaned on as much. Because, Grenard's going to be the guy.
This is a big year for him, though. I mean, if he goes in there and has a great year, he might be getting a contract extension on the end of the season.
Well, I think the Eagles realize, why. I don't think I don't.
Boy, another guy who could get a contract extension. There's a lot of these guys in Philly, man.
I mean, the Eagles realize what's going on. Now, Nolan could get hurt again, and he's playing a shitload. So, that could take care of itself. But I do think Jalix is more likely to get the long-term contract. And then Nolan, much more likely. But I do think Nolan's a better player right now. So I think short-term, just use Nolan while you have him and let him walk.
Injury concerns, obviously, for the long term, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of my thought on that. You're not going to re-sign Nolan, most likely. So use him while you have him.
And what percent chance would you put at them acquiring a safety via trade or signing or whatever, or maybe it's a post-June 1 release or something, acquiring a safety to be a starter? I'm not talking about a depth safety. I'm talking about a guy who'd come in here to start.
Well, 90% they're going to bring in a safety. A starter, probably 60%.
Still pretty good. Still pretty strong.
Yeah, I think it's more likely than not, basically, that there are other starting safeties not on the roster right now. Far more likely than not. And they might go through all training camp with this situation and pull off the CJ Gardner-Johnson move at the cut deadline. It might be a while, but I think the starting safety opposite Drew Makuba is not here yet.
We'll see what they end up doing at that position. John, the other big thing on defense, I think, coming into this year is Jalen Carter. They just picked up the 5th-year option on him. I think everybody feels pretty good about the player, but he did have a down year last year. He missed some games with injury. He's got the shoulder issues. He had the heel issue earlier in the year where he missed the New York Giants game. He was coming off a year where he had a ton of snaps, played like what was the percentage? Like 95% of snaps in 24?
No, but he was not that much.
No, but no.
Defensive tackle. He was
Where
number
did I
one.
get the 9? I thought I got the 9 from somewhere.
He was over 900 snaps, maybe there. He's over 1,000 if you count the playoffs. He played more snaps than any other interior.
What was the percentage of snaps he played? 80, 70?
No, I have to look the percentage up, but
I thought it was a shit ton. I thought I remember being like,
he led the NFL.
Yeah,
so, I mean, it is a shit ton. I mean, but it's a rotational position around the whole NFL. But he played a lot.
Well, to the point, it's a big season for him, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, because he wasn't healthy last year, and he was probably I'm guessing over 80. They don't have a percentage, but I'm trying to look at his.
That's still a lot, over 80%.
But that's just a ballpark. Let's see. Eagles. Let's see. We'll look at Reed. Was Reed healthy
in
2024? Because he plays every stinking snap.
Yeah, I think he
played 1,068 last year. I'm just looking. I'm using Reed as the baseline. So he played 1,084 of the 2024 snaps and 1,068 of the 2025 snaps, which is pretty freaking impressive, by the way. People should talk more about Reed Blankenship, but I digress.
Yeah.
So Carter led the NFL in 2024 in snaps. He had 1,067. So he was always
crazy.
And last year he was on pace to lead the NFL when he sort of started having his issues again. So, and he ended up still with 698, even though he missed, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He missed 6 regular season games. In week 18 was obviously they sat everybody. So, I mean, obviously the impact of that 2024 season had a big detrimental effect to his shoulders. And hopefully he's better. You've seen it's been the Ben Simmons off season for Jalen Carter, the constant posting of him working out in South Jersey. He looks better. He certainly lifted. I remind you, he could not lift weights when they shut him down last season, and he got the PRP shots.
So what did he do that he can now lift weights? Just got healthy? It just over time and healed?
I haven't heard him have surgery, but I haven't talked to him. I haven't seen
your shoulders are one of those things, though, John, that'll linger for years.
So maybe the PRP helped him. Maybe it was just the rest. Maybe he did have surgery. But if it's just the rest and he's going back to playing 1,000 snaps, it could be a problem again. Because you don't get the rest during the season. So yeah, it's a very big season. That's one of the reasons why he doesn't have an extension yet. And you keep hearing these weird little nuggets of potential trade scenarios. I think it's all related to the shoulder issues and how much money he's going to command.
I just don't know. I hope those shoulders are better for the long term. I mean, it feels like he's gotten surgery, but there's been no report of that, right?
No, none. But, hey, maybe the shots worked and rest. Rest a big part of it.
Yeah. Shoulders are tough and a little scary. I'm no damn professional athlete, but I'll never forget when I was in college, John. I used to work out a shit ton. I was in college. I messed up my rotator cuff on my one. It's 8 years later. I still can't bench press. If I go into the gym and I bench press or I do a sitting press like that, I can't do it. My shoulder gives out.
Yeah, I mean,
8 years later, I'm like, now again, I'm not a good cop. I'm not Jalen Carter. I don't work out for a living. You know, I'm not a good cop. I'm just saying, I know shoulders can be a hard time. My uncle had the same problem. He had a messed up shoulder. He was a bodybuilder for a long time, and then his whole bicep tore. He's got a big hole in his bicep. It fucking, broke apart when his shoulders were all messed up. I don't know. Shoulders.
well, I don't think it's a coincidence that they are releasing all these workout tapes because I think, Drew Rosenhaus wants to make it clear he can lift weights and
Right.
everything's fine and he should make the most money ever given to an interior defensive lineman. And ultimately, I think he's going to get that contract. But I do think maybe the Eagles want to play it a little bit more cautious than people want them to play it because everybody's well, just sign him. I mean, are you getting the Jalen Carter of 2024 or the Jalen Carter of 2025? It's a big difference.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, Johnny Mac, 8 minutes left to go on the show today. A good defensive talk after a lot of offensive talk. Also talked a lot of NFC East today. I think the NFC East is going to be a much better division this year. Now, how good, I don't know, but I do think they're going to be a much better division. And Eagle fans, close your ears. I think the Cowboys are going to be a pretty good team this year as well. So we will see how good. I don't think Christian Parker is a magic man, so I don't think he can do too much, but they did get some better players over there. And we will see how much better they get this year. But I thought the NFC East talk was very good, very strong talk today. Tomorrow we'll have, I think, Mike Gill and BLG back in the mix. I'm looking forward to talking to those guys, seeing what they think of, obviously, the rookie camp. And, John, they're pretty much quiet now until OTAs. Is that right?
Yeah, from an on-field perspective, at least open to us. I mean, the off-season program continues. They're there every day. They're working out. They're doing, meetings and all that kind of stuff. But as far as the team on-field stuff, that comes later in OTAs, and that's late May and into June. It'll bleed into June, and then the mandatory minicamp, and then off for the summer until training camp. And, very quickly, this might not be the schedule anymore. If they go to 18 games, the thought is that they're going to wipe out the OTAs, the 9-week off-season program, and just come back a couple weeks earlier for training camp. That's the thought, bro. That's the working.
Yeah. I don't think Roger Goodell is going to want that.
That's the working idea. Well, he wants that. I think he wants the 18th game more.
Yeah, true.
And
I think that's a mistake. I really do. I don't know. What is the infatuation with another game? Why? What are people trying, other than the people who want to make money, which is obvious? What is the infatuation with an 18th game? Is that all it is? Just money?
Just money. That's literally nothing else.
Nothing else.
Not good for the players.
Yeah, but sometimes when you pursue that, John, there are every action in life has a reaction or a consequence.
Yeah, I mean, it already happened. Why do you have
are there some consequences that could come to this where football might not grow at the same rate? Or I mean, I guess in theory, when you look at all the data, it's gonna keep growing, but I don't know.
Well, I think that's why they're trying to. I think in a lot of ways they have maxed out the U.S. and that's why they're trying to grow the game so much internationally. They're trying to open new markets, and that's why. But boy, I hate those internet. I hate them. Like, nobody wants to travel to these places. These are creatures of habit. Hey, we're going to get ready for, next week's game. It's everything's structured. Wednesday practice, Thursday, Friday, Saturday walkthrough, Sunday game. And forget about, Monday and Thursday and all Black Friday and all the goofy stuff they've entered into it, which creates havoc for, the repetition of it. Now you're talking about, oh, by the way, you got to go to Australia. You got to go to Brazil. You got to go to London, which they've been doing for years, obviously. And now Spain's in the mix, and Germany, and obviously Mexico, which is a little bit easier. But nobody wants to do that. Nobody. I don't know anybody from a player coaching perspective that wants to do that. It's all money related. All of it. And the only thing the players have been able to win.
We have even more injuries from more gameplay. I mean, and you lose more star players. It already feels like the injuries have been ramping up. There's a lot of injuries out there. I don't know. I mean, I just think there's a lot of variables there, but who knows? I'm just some dummy on fucking YouTube. They're not gonna listen to me. So I'm just.
But from your standpoint of, is there any other reason than money? No, zero, zero. But it's the same way with everything else. NBA, you look at the prices for Sixers, Knicks, I mean, all these things have drowned out the average Joe, so to speak. Just the enormous price and cost. And at some point, I keep saying they're going to go too far. And I think they've already gone too far to a large extent. But you still have as long as they keep making the money, they're not going to stop. And as long as you have the higher level people, you can price out the people that can't afford it. But as long as you have enough of the higher level earners, they don't care. Yeah.
I guess it's already an elitist, going to a game. It used to not be, John. Now it's like you want to bring a family to afford to a football game. Get ready to pony up 2 G's.
You might not be able to get parking.
I know.
Oh my God.
Parking's going to be $65, $75, $80 a head. It's unbelievable. But whatever. It is what it is. All right, Johnny Mac, your final couple thoughts here on a Tuesday edition. I thought we had some good convo today on NFC East, offense, defense, you name it. And now we wait here for the offseason OTA. The draft has come and gone. And we are in the next phase, getting ready now for the 2026 football season.
Yeah, technically already we have morphed into 2026. Obviously, that starts the new league year. But to see the guys on the field for rookie camp, the first real practice of the 2026 season, if you want to call it practice. But they're on the field, and OTAs are coming quickly. So it'll be here before you know it. Once training camp starts, the grind has begun.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it all goes. Johnny Mac, great show today, my friend. We appreciate you doing it per usual. Always great insight on the team. I think one of the very, very best out there when it comes to making knowledgeable, educated football fans. We got a lot of them in this chat. So, John, we appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks, brother.
All right, thanks. I'll see you.
All right, thanks, Jim Mac. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. Appreciate everybody being here today. Good show today. We were a little late this morning. I had an issue, and then John had an issue. So we had back-to-back issues. So we apologize for that. I see Jason. We owe you 10 minutes. Jason, I don't owe you shit, all right? Jason, you owe us 10 minutes. What, Jason? Are you paying my bills, Jason? Fucking Jason, you owe me 10 minutes. Jason, sit down and shut the fuck up, Jason. All right? Come on, man. Bobby, who you ripping in the chat? I see all you guys ripping people in the chat. Fanatic, what's going on? Keith, what up, Keith? Brandon, what's up, Brandon? Appreciate everybody being here today. Steve, what's up, Steve? Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. Rasputin, what's up, my man? A lot of good commentary in the chat today. I try and keep up with all of it. Blue Virus, what's up, my man? Blue Virus, what's up, brother? Good to see you. Good to see you. We got another Cowboy fan in the chat, Blue. Look at Blue with the jersey on. He's got everything rocking on the profile picture. The Cowboy Eagle rivalry in the chat is going. What's up, Rasputin? Now I do appreciate Jason. I tell him that all the time. Sometimes I think I tell him too much. Yeah, maybe he's got a little air in the head over there. Jason, I love you, brother. I appreciate you. Cullen, what's up, dude? Football, what's up, man? Bill, what's up? Thanks for watching from Facebook. How about that? Appreciate it, man. If you want to check in with the chat, come on over to YouTube as well. Facebook's good too. Whatever you like. Whatever you like. Philly Don, my guy, how you doing, brother? What's been going on in your neck of the woods, Philly Don? I'm sure you're working, getting it done, Philly Don, per usual, man. Jammers, what's up, dude? Jammers, what are you thinking on the Commanders? Is my guy HTTC here? What's that dude? I forget his first name. Somebody's got the HTTC name. Damn, sorry, bro. He's here a lot. What the hell is that dude? Is it Tommy? Yeah, here it is, Tommy. Jammers, what are you thinking of your Commander squad? There he is. Right now. I mean, I know I'm sure you feel good, but just being as honest as you can. I mean, obviously you guys went to the damn NFC Championship game, which was unreal, and then you fall back to 5 wins last year. Is there optimism on like another playoff contender, or is it like, let's hope we can be between 5 and 12 and get the 9 wins? Like, I'm curious where it is. It's kind of an interesting situation for the Commanders because it's not like a normal ascent. Like the Cowboys, they got worse several years ago, and then their offense got better. And now they're looking to add to the defense, get the defense better. They're kind of looking to go that slow, steady climb. The Eagles have been good for several years now. Giants, who the hell knows what the Giants are doing? Does anybody know what the Giants are doing? Yeah, I don't know. The Giants. Fucking the New York Football Giants. James says he likes it, got younger. Here's Tommy says, I got to see it on the field this year. Yeah, I agree, Tommy. You guys are just the moves you guys made last summer I really criticized because I just didn't think going older like that was the right move, especially around Jaden Daniels. But that's what they did. I think they've made some better moves this year, but we'll see. We'll see. Big Mike, what's up, man? Big Z back in the saddle. Hope you enjoyed. Yeah, it was great, man. A lot of fun. Maybe a little too much fun, Big Mike. That ship has sailed in my life. I used to love the fun, but I'm a lot more boring now. I like to work. I like to hang out in my garage. I like to drive my car, and I like to. I'm a homebody a lot more so today than I once was. A lot more so today than I was. I see you wearing the Mark Wahlberg. Oh yeah, right. Municipal is his brand. Yeah, I have the shoes too, Des. I got the shoes too, actually. Yeah, good win for the good win for them in Game 7 last night. That was last night, right? Was that last night or was that Sunday night? Was that last night or was that Sunday night? That might have been Sunday night. I remember I watched the end of it. I just didn't remember which night it was. Yeah, it was Sunday. Sunday night. When you get older, that's what I know it is, brother. First time. Oh, hell yeah, Colin. That's going to be awesome, man. Looking forward to the opener. I'm looking forward to the opener. Zay, did you watch? Yeah, I watched the Flyers game. I watched them both. I watched them all last night. I was watching I watched a little of the Phillies. I didn't watch them at the end. I watched the Flyers, and I was flipping back and forth between the Sixers and the Flyers, but the Sixers started getting blown out. They started an hour later, though, so it was kind of tough. I was watching third period. So, yeah, I watched them both. I thought the Flyers team played well early in that game, but they just kind of slowed up, and stopped putting the pressure on, started playing defensive hockey a lot more, and ultimately bit them in the butt. That I'll tell you what, that Hurricanes team is a good fucking team, man. They are a good team. I think the NHL playoffs are awesome right now. So, but I think that Hurricane team is not a team that. Yeah, you got to be full. You got to be full steam ahead. But Jason, it's not over yet, dude. It's not over yet. You lost 2 games on the road. Regroup, get back home, get back in the win column. So, Fly says, "Shoot, I'm paying for this house. I'm going to be in it." Damn right. That's a good way to look at it. It's a good way to look at it. Canes in 4 could be. Canes are a good team, man. Canes are a good team. They have been for quite a bit of time. Yeah, Carolina's no joke. Blue says, "Hey, do you do shout-outs for other channels?" You mean your channel? Go sure. Go shout out to you, Blue Virus. Do you make content? I'll go tune in. I always tune into people's content. If somebody's in our chat and they make content, I always say I'll go check out the content. What's my guy is NJ Fishing Maniac. I freaking love his channel. He's awesome, that dude. I absolutely love that guy, and I love watching him. He fishes out in Jersey. He runs the camera. He runs live streaming, and he just fishes for 4, 5, 6 hours. It's freaking awesome. He's a great dude. He's been a supporter of JAKIB for a long time. He often wears the JAKIB sweatshirt I sent him. So Brunson, oh dude, that dude is a stone cold hooper. You know, some dudes that just, you know, when I was younger, and you play ball or whatever, you go to the park or whatever, and there'd just be the dude who just doesn't matter what size he was, the dude could just fucking go up against anybody and hoop. Jalen Brunson reminds me of that, obviously in a professional form. You know, I mean, the dude just, it doesn't matter who he's up against. It doesn't matter what the defense is doing. The dude is going to find the space on the floor to make the plays. He's also an unbelievable point guard. I mean, some of the ways that he passes the ball. I mean, even that, did you guys see that early in the first quarter last night, that alley-oop he threw to Mitchell Robinson under the hoop? I mean, he gets the pick and roll. He bounces around it. He's got Mitchell Robinson. He puts that ball on a freaking laser. Great catch by Mitchell Robinson. And he dunks it in, got behind and beat. I mean, that dude is a hooper, Jalen Brunson. He gets his spot, and he just is a scorer. He's a playmaker. He's a passer. Really, really fucking good basketball player. Really good. Love it. Blue Virus says, that's awesome. I have my own channel, Blue Virus Show. Then I'm on the Next Level Sports Lounge. If you guys can. Love it, dude. Go check them out. Sixers will still, I don't know, HKP. That's a tough team. That's a tough team. Where is my boy Philly Don? What's up, man? Philly Don. Member for 20 months. Thank you, brother, for all your support per usual. He says, Big Z, I have a dilemma. My daughter's husband is a Dallas fan and decided to name my new grandson Dallas after them. Oh, man. Should I make him an Eagles fan, or should I follow his father and become a Cowboys fan? Well, you're not becoming a Cowboys fan. That's not allowed, Philly Don. That's fucking brutal. That's brutal, Don. Are you telling me King James is going to be fighting? Is it James's brother, or is it another daughter of yours, Philly Don? Wait, so is this James's brother, Philly Don? You got to let me know. Is this James's brother? Which, by the way, I still got my James thing up there. I don't know if you can see it, but until then, I still got my James painting. I still got it in my office right there. Look at this thing. This thing is sick, dude. Thank you for the merch from James. It's meant a lot to me. So is that James's brother? Cousin. Okay, it says cousin. So your other, I don't know if James is your godson or your grandson from your son or your daughter, but your other child is having a child. Gotcha. All right, and then she's married to a Cowboy fan. Fucking brutal. That's brutal. It's Don. You hate to see it, my guy. Don, I don't really have advice for you, bro. You're going to have to manage that family dynamic however you see best fit. I'll say this, Philly Don. You're the patriarch, all right? You're the patriarch. You let this geezer come in and you let him be the patriarch as the Cowboy fan, your entire bloodline will become Cowboy fans. Philly Don, I might have just answered. Put your foot down as the patriarch of the family. We're an Eagle family. You married my daughter, which means you're now an Eagle fan. Like Blue Virus, he's an Eagle fan too. Philly Don, I wouldn't let that happen. Not in my home. Not in my family bloodline. Come on, Don. It's just sports. Whatever he wants to do. Whatever he wants to do. Who knows? Who knows? Here's Jason. What's up, Jason? Our team is much better. I think the Sixers let game one go. They can figure out how to play. And then, well, you know what I think it was too? I think it was a little bit of a, sometimes like you have these highs, right? And they obviously came back from 3-1 to beat the Celtics in 7. I think they were on the high there, and maybe a little bit of a letdown in game one because of coming off that high, playing that, intense basketball for 3 straight games where you're in elimination mode and you knock off the Celtics, you win on the road. You reach these big highs, you make these big moments, you have these pressure situations, and then you have a game one where the pressure is not as high on the road in New York. I think that's probably what happened to the Sixers last night in game one, but it's the playoffs, man. You got to show up every night. So I'm not a fan of Nick Nurse. I'm not. I agree with John. Like John made such a good point at the open of our show today, and he's like, you got Jalen Brunson who comes out there and he just starts fucking hooping in the first quarter, and Tyrese Maxey can't get a shot. Like, I struggle with this, guys, because I have a lot of respect and appreciation for Joel Embiid as a talent, as a basketball player. He's one of the better players that the Sixers have probably ever had. He's extremely talented, unbelievable player. Obviously, the injuries, you can't put it all on him, but it is a part of his story. But, like, for example, he's on the floor last night. All right, that's great. But in order for us to play well as a basketball team and have Joel Embiid on the floor, it almost feels like the only way to do that at times is to marginalize who I believe has a higher upside and a bigger impact at this point in his career on the games. You have to marginalize Tyrese Maxey. I mean, you guys got to think. You know how hard it is for a ball-dominant point guard to get the space they need when your center comes to the top of the point, top of the key, up there at the 3-point line, and he stands there, and that's the offense that they run. It just makes things so hard for Tyrese Maxey to control the ball at the top. Now, does it give him space to get to the hoop? Yeah, it does, but I don't know. That offense really bothers me with Embiid standing up there. Like, part of me wants to go old school. Joel, you're 7 foot fucking tall. Get to the damn box, post them up, and I'll get it to you on the box. I'll get it to you at the damn key. What are we doing here? Joel Embiid, 7 foot tall, standing out on the perimeter like he's a guard. That offense has bothered me for years. It worked with Ben Simmons because he couldn't shoot. Oh, Embiid's flops are crazy. He's a flop city. Where's Philly Don? Did he answer me? Is he taking charge as the patriarch of his family? Or is he allowing it to fall into the abyss? Don't talk sports at the Thanksgiving table. Is Embiid flopping or I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Ronan says, I'm a Celtics fan. They're set the Sixers up for failure. Yeah, well, they're tired, dude. A lot of game. I mean, look, I don't think that's a good excuse, though. I don't think that's a good excuse. I watched LeBron in his prime go to 8 straight finals and play damn near every fucking minute of almost every game. I mean, I get it. LeBron's a rare breed, but you didn't hear him making excuses. You didn't hear the bullshit. Oh, I'm tired. I can't play good here because I'm tired. No. You want to win championships? Look, Michael, if you want to be the second round team for life, all right. Yeah, you can use that excuse. If you want to pursue greatness, if you want to pursue championship basketball, that's not a good excuse. That's actually a horrible excuse. Well, I played a lot of minutes in the playoffs. Well, yeah, welcome to the fucking playoffs, guy. Welcome to the playoffs. Yeah, well, it was more than just Miami. It wasn't just Miami where he did that. And by the way, he was the team on Miami. He didn't go to Miami and Dwayne Wade was number one. I mean, LeBron in Miami was one of the greatest basketball players of all time, that era of LeBron. I mean, I don't know how many minutes he averaged. How many minutes? His average minutes in the playoff games in his career is 42.1 minutes per game. Do you understand? 42 minutes a game, average. Average. 42 and a half minutes per game in the NBA Finals. 41.3 minutes per game in the career playoffs. Fucking crazy. Gregory, shut your bitch ass up. Gregory Marr, 67. Fucking cry me a river in my chat. Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. Miami would have won those chips without LeBron. Is that right? Are you seriously telling me that I don't know shit and you're saying LeBron wasn't that good in Miami? Are you fucking outside your mind? Even LeBron's biggest haters have to admit him in Miami was unreal. He was an unreal player in Miami. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. I'm not even a LeBron as the GOAT guy. I'm a Jordan guy. Are you kidding me? Yeah, right. He followed Wade. He latched onto Wade. You're right. Come on, dude. Come on, bro. You don't got to be a LeBron lover or a LeBron hater to acknowledge the truth. LeBron was a fucking beast in Miami. And he was a beast when he returned to Cleveland, too. And he was a beast when he came from Cleveland, too. Here's Ryan. He says, I'm a diehard Heat fan. We weren't winning those chips without LeBron. Yeah, don't tell Gregory that. Don't tell Gregory that. Whoa. You said something stupid, and now you're trying to conflate multiple things. I'm talking about LeBron in Miami. I'm not talking about Shaq. I'm not talking about Shaq. You could talk about Shaq. I'm talking about LeBron James in Miami. They won multiple rings, and they should have won more. They should have won more. Yeah, his second Cleveland stint was unreal, too. LeBron built super teams. No, that's wrong. I mean, he obviously was the start with the move to Miami, but all right. So, what do you think of the Golden State Warriors, who already won a championship, and then added Kevin fucking Durant in his prime? I mean, come on. Yeah, the South Beach, the bright ass LeBron sneaks, they were cool. I never had a pair. Keith, I'm a white dude. I don't know that I could pull those off. South Beach LeBrons. Yeah, those things were crazy. The teal and pink. I don't know. As a white dude, I can pull off a lot. I don't know that I could pull these off. I really don't. These are fucking sick, though. Those are sick. Yeah, Keith, I'm one of them. Kyrie was unreal in this play in that Cleveland championship win. Kyrie was unreal. I agree with you, Gregory. I'm with you. I understand why you're tough on LeBron for it, but KD, the difference between KD and LeBron is when LeBron arrived in Miami, LeBron was the guy immediately. And that's no disrespect to Dwayne Wade, who's one of the greatest basketball players of all time, and Chris Bosh, who's a great player. But LeBron was the guy. When KD rolled in, he wasn't really the guy. He didn't need to be the guy. It actually would have been stupid to make him the guy. That wasn't a super team. I don't think that was a super team. With Kyrie and Kevin Love, I don't know about that. I mean, you got Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, or you got Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Well, I mean, it's basketball, Gregory. Don't you agree? I mean, look, there's a lot of different things that have to go. It's not a one-man show. I mean, you can make the argument, if you're going to go that route, I can make the argument Ray Allen won it for him. I mean, they get bounced there in game 6 if it's not for Ray Allen, who drops back in the last second of the game, gets the feet behind the line and drills a triple off a Chris Bosh rebound. I'll never forget that play. I'll never forget that triple by Ray Allen. That was a fucking hell of a triple. So I don't know. I mean, did Wade really win the chip for him? I don't think so. Did Wade contribute? Obviously. You know? Yeah, Ray Allen's boss. Ray Allen's a boss. That was a hell of a shot. That was a hell of a shot off a Bosh rebound to the corner. Fucking nails the triple. Oh, my gosh. That was crazy. You know, obviously the one that got away from LeBron was the Maverick series where Dirk Nowitzki just, you know, when I was younger, I used to have a Dirk jersey because I love Dirk. The fucking massive shot. Dirk, man. That was unreal playoff performance by Dirk. That was the one that got away from LeBron, though. That was the one that got away from LeBron. Was the Heat versus Celtics. Or no, Mavericks, excuse me. Yeah, 4-2, 2011. That was, oh, man, Dirk was a savage in that game, or in that series. Yeah, and it was a tough-ass run. That's right. Dirk. Yeah, Dirk was awesome. Jason Kidd, that's right. That's right. Here's Alfredo. It says, Zander, I listened to Jeff McLean's podcast. He said from his understanding, Sean has full autonomy. Nick is still the head coach, but Vic running in the D and Mannion running the L. Will that be a good thing? I don't know. I don't know. When LeBron cried in the tunnel, I think people make too much of that. I think people make too much of that. Jeff Bone, when you dedicate your life and everything you are as a man, as a person, as a being, as a professional, as a father, where you sacrifice, as a husband, when you sacrifice all that, you know, and you try and reach the pinnacle, there's emotion that goes into that. Whether you think that's manly or not doesn't matter. I mean, you know, there's people, oh, if you cry, you're not a dude. I don't know. There's emotion that's tied to that. There, you know, there's meaning, there's impact, there's your purpose as a man tied to that. So I don't care that somebody cried. Like I didn't care that Joel Embiid cried. You know? That's just passion. Here's Gregory. He says he lost that series, and that is all LeBron. I mean, he let JT guard him on the 3-line, and y'all put win on LeBron. Like, come on. I don't think we're putting it all on LeBron. I just think I don't think they get there without LeBron. All right, you think I give LeBron too much credit? I think you don't give him enough credit. All right, that's fine. Chris Anderson, yeah, it was awesome. That was sick. Tatted up Birdman. Man, there were some great basketball players. I wish the NBA was as awesome today as it once was. I really do. I wish the NBA was as awesome today as it once was. Some people might disagree with me. Some people might think that it is as awesome, but it doesn't feel like it is. That's for sure. Not to me, it doesn't. Not to me, it doesn't. You know, somebody I love was Kevin Garnett. I know he's a Celtics player, but Timberwolves too. I love Kevin Garnett. Yeah. Joker to Miami. Jalen Brown. I'm not a huge Jalen Brown fan, but yeah, Jaw Zion and Grant. Yeah, it hasn't quite happened that way, has it, Keese? I like Ant. I do like Anthony Edwards, but yeah, it's 3-point. It's not the same, Gregory. It's really not. I grew up as a kid, and I'm a white dude, but I love basketball. I always have loved basketball, but I was a kid and I was trying to play hoops. My dad told me, he said, go to the bottom of the key and throw the ball, do a layup with one hand on the ball. And I don't want you to get off the key until you can do 1,000 straight without missing one. Do your right hand first and do your left hand next. And your left hand will be harder, but your left hand's more important. Do your left hand next. And he said, once you're done that, don't go anywhere near the 3-point line. Go to the foul, go to the free throw line and do 1,000 free throws until you can do 1,000 free throws. That's how I learned to play basketball. Literally, that's why I'm so great with my left and my right under the hoop. My dad told me to do this and do this. You can't use the other hand. One hand on the ball, and you can't. If you miss one, you got to reset. I don't think I ever reached 1,000, but the point remained. Now it's just jack and triples. Yeah, it's ugly. A lot more ugly. That's cool. My father-in-law was a sports journalist in Poland. Damn, how about that? They covered the NBA over in Poland. Loves Garrett and Ant-Man. Yeah. Garnett's awesome. Garnett was a fucking killer, dude. Garnett was a savage. I loved his mentality on the floor. Zander Jordan. Let's go, Jair. Let's go. Yeah, it's true. Europe does love the NBA. All right, boys, I got to run. I appreciate all you guys tuning in, and girls. Appreciate everybody tuning in today. All right, we had good shows so far. I think I'm going to launch up some giveaways soon. I think I owe some people some stuff. I got some jerseys still here. I want to get some new jerseys to give away. So I'm going to ramp that up pretty soon here and do some more giveaways for the great people of JAKIB Nation. All right. We even have our Cowboys fans in here today. Maybe if a Cowboy fan wins, I'll get you some Cowboy merch or whatever the case may be. I know Eagle fans won't like to hear that, but I don't care. All right. I appreciate all the people who support JAKIB. And so maybe we'll do that soon. Love all you guys, though. Hit that like button. I got to run. I got some shit to do. I completely forgot about some of it. So I got to get that done now. Hit that like button, everybody. See you next time.
EAGLES Eagles.